Scene 1
In this
Delta,
vlog,
take 2.
I'm going to be talking about my
Sound, please.
four-stage editing process for the short film Yolanda. The four-stage process I worked with for this project was first stage of reading and analysing the script, lining the script, scene-by-scene analysis, and finally the edit. I will also be talking about why I made these decisions in the process. When I read the script, I recognised that Jacques was the protagonist. Through reading the script, I could visualise the unfortunate events that Jacques is going through in the story. As he has lost his wife through an illness, but also having found out that his wife Yolanda had cheated on him, makes him the main protagonist throughout the story. The second process before I began to edit was to line the script. Lining a script is very important because it helped me choose what clips and coverage and changes that need to be made for my edit. This also helped me make quick decisions before I cut, so I didn't have to scroll through every clip of footage. Secondly, the lines I've drawn are the duration of the shot with the clip number I'm going to be using at this time in the sequence. During my post-production process, there were decisions I had to make on the basis of Walter Murch's rule of 6. Using my own views and decisions, the emotion was one of the key factors I thought about whilst editing. As I read the story, I chose wisely which shots I wanted to use. For example, here I started off with an extreme close-up of Jacques' eyes. I quickly wanted to show emotion at the start of the edit as I felt it would cut straight to the point as showing what type of character Jacques is. The voiceover was the key part as it gives the audience empathy towards Jacques' love for Yolanda. Unfortunately, due to the lack of dialogue that was used in the edits, I felt that using a backing track would create more emotion involved. Reading the script thoroughly gave me a vision of how I wanted to tell the story visually in my eyes. I felt that the edit moved the story forward as I experienced a journey through Jacques' eyes of his relationship with Yolanda and how her deceiving him would cause devastation towards him. Secondly, I used the edit as a story of travelling through time, as a man who had lost his wife unexpectedly, then investigating what the cause of her death was and how the story has an unexpected twist from Yolanda, showing love for Jacques to realising that she did not love him at all. I felt that the majority of the shots I used were at the same length but has no rhythm within the edit. I used a lot of dissolves as the location changed in each scene. On the other hand, I also used this transition within parts of the sound editing. For example, in scene 1, I used a cross dissolve in between the title and the opening scene. The score was used to show the story of Jacques and then it dissolves, as the sound for the first scene is used, as I wanted to send a message that we are no longer in Jacques' dream, as we now go into the real world. When editing Yolanda, I used a repetition in the last scene of Yolanda's gravestone, where I cut from a mid-shot to a close-up. I used this to deliver information that a person's gravestone had been changed and then cut into the close-up, giving it the shock and emotion in the story to actually find out the truth about what Yolanda did to Jacques during their relationship. Secondly, cutting from a mid-shot to a close-up will provide the ultimate reaction for the audience. Using the backing track would give the scene more tension as well as the image whilst I was in the editing process. I felt that the cuts I used, the action followed the 180 degrees line to keep my action amongst the correct path of motion and to maintain the continuity. I made sure that my movement flowed along the same path. As we looked at the mirror scene, I used the left side of the frame to then cut to the middle frame. I also made this decision to cut to a clean transition as well as following the 180 degree line. I felt I followed the action well as I edited in the process. As an example of three-dimensional space was the graveyard as we see Jacques talking to the old gravedigger as the camera focuses on the mid-shot on the left side of frame. As the gravedigger concludes his dialogue, I use back-to-back shots cutting from one frame to the next as using the action-to-reaction term. The gravedigger is the main character in the scene as he dominates with the dialogue warning Jacques not to return to the cemetery. Looking at the gravedigger's actions, I then decided to cut to Jacques as the reaction shot on the opposite angle of Jacques. I used this decision based on how I wanted to show an immediate response in the story.